Into the deep end now. The most recent school shooting at Appalachia High School in Georgia is a horrible reminder of the difficult conversations that parents, caregivers, and teachers are having with children about violence and safety.
That shooting on Wednesday left 2 students and 2 teachers dead. 9 others were hurt. The suspect is just 14 years old. Police say he used an AR-style weapon in the shooting and is now charged with 4 counts of murder. Police also arrested the child's father on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and 8 counts of cruelty to child. Investigators say the father gave his son an AR-15 style rifle as a gift. Authorities also interviewed the father and son last year in connection with threats to carry out a school shooting. The city of Winder is holding a memorial service tonight to honor the victims of that tragedy.
Joining us to continue this very important conversation is Dr. Beth Ebel, a pediatrician at UW Medicine. Doctor, the unfortunate reality is school shootings are becoming much more common, it seems. We know that schools are doing active shooter drills for kids of all ages. That's been going on for years. Let's start with elementary school students, with some of those kids as young as 5 years old. You know, how can a parent, a caregiver, a teacher best talk to those students about what active shooter drills are and why they're so important?
Well, pediatricians, we all share our profound sorrow for the preventable loss of life for these kids and the teachers trying to protect them. Drills in schools are helpful. They help kids know what to do in a crisis, whether that is from gun violence or a natural disaster.
And you mentioned, Steve just mentioned talking to those younger kids, those 5-year-olds, but when students get to middle and high school, they likely have a better understanding of these drills. But the conversation shouldn't stop there. How can parents and caregivers start to talk to their children about what to do should they find themselves in a situation like that?
You know, these are incredibly stressful times, and there are a few points that really help. The first is to listen to your child's fears and concerns and answer according to their development. Be honest, answer their questions. The second is to keep routines. You know, school is generally a very safe place, and the predictability of routines are reassuring to kids of every age. Limit media exposure, especially repetitive and graphic exposure. If you're interested yourself, kind of look on your own time, because it just piles on the stress. And then reaffirm that we're all here to help each other. You know, parents, other folks, schools, police, and government, all of these things work.
It's important, obviously, to have those conversations at home. You know, are there other things that parents and caregivers can do at home to keep their child safe from gun violence?
Absolutely. You know, in addition to this kind of public trauma, every day we lose 28 kids to gun violence, and it is preventable through a lot of steps. So I encourage you in your individual home, guns don't make folks safer. You can choose not to have a gun in your home. It increases the risk, just as a dog with rabies is going to bite the person who's nearby. If you have a gun in your home, there are good tools to store it safely and get the ammunition stored safely too. This protects not only against the tragedy that we heard recently, but against suicides and homicides and even kids finding guns unintentionally. And then laws work. You know, states such as Washington that have strong laws to protect against gun violence have lower rates of mass shootings, lower rates of homicide, lower rates of unintentional injury. It really does make a difference. So your voice and your vote matters too.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up the topic of voting, because we're obviously in a very critical election year. On the other end, instead of talking to just, you know, the day-to-day student about these issues, in this case in Georgia, we know that the investigators had interviewed this kid in the past and his parent, I'm talking about the shooter here, because he showed signs of distress and he was writing about threats in the past. If a parent or caregiver notices that their student is maybe acting a bit differently, maybe struggling with their mental health a bit, how should they start those conversations with their kids?
Yeah, that is such an important question. In this case, too, you saw people who had concerns and they raised those concerns. So one hopes that many times those concerns do lead to action, and that can prevent a tragedy such as this. So talking to your kids when they bring up something that's difficult about school, about something they're worried about, say, you know, I'm so glad that you brought that up to me. Having those conversations is really critical, because each time that happens, there's an opportunity to prevent a tragedy.
Doctor, it seems like, as we mentioned, school shootings happen all the time, and this one in Georgia is obviously the latest example. How often do you want to have these conversations with these kids? Every time something like this happens, or what does the timeline look like when you're having those difficult conversations between adults and parents about something that's just so horrific?
I suggest that parents in something like this, it's very public, say, boy, this is stressful. What have you heard about it? So you're not pushing, you're just asking. And the kid might say, look, I'm trying not to think about it. I'm just getting around doing my business. Allow that to be, right? That's their choice. If someone says, yeah, it's really stressing me, this happened the other day in my school, it gives you the opportunity to see what they know and answer according to what they are asking for. And if you need additional help, or you think things are really stressful, you're having a hard time with a child who's just afraid to go to school, even though you know that routine is helpful, do seek out your pediatrician and get that additional support. Because again, we're all here to help each other, and this is preventable.
Definitely is preventable.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, doctor, for joining us on this important topic. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.